I hope you're not too tired, but I'm here to talk about Jim Cook. He's a second cousin of mine, but he's still a great guy. In his biography here, it tells about him working for his grandfather. And his grandfather was probably one of the best horsemen that I've ever known. He raised a lot of horses over the years, hundreds of horses. And when Jim was out there at his grandfather's ranch, and he rode horses, he rode good horses. One time I saw him, we lived about 2 miles from there, and I saw my uncle and Jim ride over, and they gathered up about 15 head of wild range horses and took them back to the ranch. And you might say, well, that's no big deal, but Jim Cook was 5 years old, and he was riding a good big horse. So he rode a lot of horses. One time, I suppose he was about 9 or 10, and we'd ride that country out there quite a bit, and I was riding a horse and needed to go someplace, and so I said, well, let's go down to Richard Moore's, and that was about 10 miles away. It was fairly early in the morning, so we rode down to Richard Moore's, and when he got there, he said, well, I'm glad to see you guys. He said, I got about 40 head of cows up on Bell Lake pasture. I got to gather and brand the calves if you want to help. So we did. He and Francis Boyce and I and Jim went up and gathered these cattle. And about the time we're going to head for the ranch, about 4 miles away, Francis Boyce said, well, let's just run them up in this washout and brand them. And it was July and about 90 above, I think, in the shade. And we ran these cattle up in a washout and drug some brush and trees over to hold them up there. And we wrestled those 40 head of calves and branded them that afternoon or that day. And then we rode down home. So Jim has done about everything in the ranching business that's to be done. He's cowboyed, he's running, we would trail horses to Medora. I don't know how many times he took canners to Medora. And usually there was Jim was along and his dad. And so he's done a lot of that. He had a ranch, he operated a ranch. He operated several sale barns. He's a first-class auctioneer. And the other thing that I think made him successful is that he was from North Dakota, so he knew the people and he knew all about the people. And one time he told me a story, and it was kind of interesting. He was announcing a rodeo, I think in either Baker or Ekalaka. And if you know, have heard about Feet Took, he was a big producer in Ekalaka, and he had some great bucking horses. He had a horse called General Custer that had never been ridden. And he said at this rodeo, there's like an 18-year-old kid there in the bronc riding, and if you guys at a rodeo know that when you start rodeoing, these producers and the bronc riders and the contestants don't have much use for you. They look and wonder, why are you supposed to be here? Well, this kid didn't know anybody and nobody knew him, and he went up to Took and he said, Mr. Took, he said, I drew a horse named General Custer. Could you tell me what he does? And Took looked kind of down at him and he said, well, kid, this horse bucks. And he walked off and left him. And this kid got on him, first qualified ride ever made on him. The kid walks back by the chutes, went to Took, and he said, yeah, he does buck a little bit. And that kid was a fellow you probably heard of, Larry Kane from Big Sandy, Montana. So he got so he could ride horses. Another time Jim knew everybody, I shouldn't say this, but Fielding Phillips and I were entered in the team roping the 4th of July Rodeo in Dickinson. And so before he announces this, he said, these next 2 outlaws, he said, I think probably would rope a lot better if it were dark and they were in somebody else's pasture. So Jim knew all about it, and I think probably of anybody that's deserving the Cowboy Hall of Fame, it's Jim, because he's done about everything there is in rodeo. He's been a contestant, he's been an announcer, and like the ad is, we can do anything because we've seen everything, something like that. And Jim, I think, would be a dead ringer for the Hall of Fame. He's done everything. He's a Western North Dakota product and a great guy. Thank you.
Wow. Okay. Rex had talked to me about speaking on behalf of Jim, and Brad was supposed to, but Brad couldn't be here till later this evening. And you know, everything that happened back before the 70s, you know, I didn't know Rex until into the 70s, or Rex, I mean Jim, till into the 70s when my dad was probably roping in Dickinson, you know, then, but I remember, you know, going to the rodeos, listening to him announce and everything, and then shortly, I mean, I don't know, he was probably done announcing, but I'd seen him somewhere, and he would always talk to me. And I mean, an older gentleman taking the time to talk to somebody that was 30, 40 years younger, I thought was great. And I remember one time I had my 2 girls with, and I introduced them to Jim, and it seemed like every time after that, even a year ago out at the Cowboy Hall of Fame thing, he asked me, well, how's your 2 daughters doing? You know, he's still concerned about the kids and stuff. So I just think that, you know, the Cowboy Hall of Fame, we need these older people to get in here, because that's what started this Western heritage and everything. So let's get them in here and recognize them. So thank you.
I'm Sally Aber, Bob's wife. I'm here to, in behalf of Jim Cook. Jim was an announcer for Bob's Rodeos for many years. Bob had the rodeos at Valley City for 49 years. And 18 years of that, Jim did the announcing. He also was Bob's announcer for rodeos such as Baker, Montana, Forsyth, Glendive, Sydney, and several more. He was hired by Bob not just because they grew up in the same area and rode at the same rodeos, but he knew Jim was very knowledgeable about the rodeos and its many contestants, which is an absolute for one to know if he is going to be a success as an announcer. It is not just a matter of a good speaking voice, which he certainly had, but he had to be very well versed in each and every contestant's history. He did his homework. Bob's philosophy, and mine as well, is, and I think it's very valid, any person or animal who has the honor of being selected for the Cowboy Hall of Fame should only be selected because of their merits. Jim has earned his merits. I got to tell one more. It's time to be funny. And this is a funny one. We were in Dickinson, North Dakota at a rodeo. We were in Dickinson, North Dakota at a rodeo. The rodeo was over. But first I have to tell you that Jim Cook was known for his white Cadillacs, a bar, clothes bar across the back, all of his shirts and stuff pressed and everything in the back, hanging in the back. It was considered the Cook Motel. Anyway, the rodeo was over, and we were just kind of getting ready. Bob was sorting the horses, and all of a sudden, one of the big bulls jumped the fence and took off down the road. And I was there, so I saw it all. And Bob yelled at the pickup men, go after him. So both of the guys, I think it was Northrup and Danny Nelson, they got on either side and they started bringing the bull up, you know, toward. And the bull just started coming right, just in a straight, and they had him on both sides. And then he headed right for the white Cadillac, jumped into the back window with his feet to check out the goods back there. And Jim was yelling, hey boys, watch out, you know. And then he changed his language. And I think it was foreign because nobody could understand what he was saying.